Okay, so we're going to start with Act 4. Act 4, Scene 1 is a rather long scene and another very important scene. In it, we continue to witness Iago's manipulation of Othello, and we really start to see the mental and physical deterioration of Othello, which builds up to a climax. I have asked you to have a quick read through the scene yourself and to watch the little video that I attached, which gives an overview of the scene. If you haven't already done that, you can stop the video now, go back and do those two things. It will just mean that it's easier to follow as I'm analysing. So, things that you need to look for. The mental deterioration of Othello, you're going to see right from the beginning of the scene, but you're going to see it intensify as we progress. Evidence that you can look for of it. First of all, the fragmented syntax, these disjointed utterances that are broken down by dashes, caesura. You're also going to see some illogical statements from him, statements that don't yet show, that don't quite show a beautiful line of reasoning as we've seen so far. And violent and animalistic imagery that we can see, or we can call in inverted commas, an Iagoization of Othello's language, meaning that his language is coming to much more closely mirror the crude and vulgar language that we've seen from Iago so far. We're also going to see two key moments of physical violence as a result of this building emotion, his jealousy overcoming him. The first is internalized in the form of a trance, which Iago tells us is an epileptic fit, but we get the sense that it's virtual madness overtaking him. Secondly, we see he strikes Desdemona towards the end of the scene, a shocking moment for the audience and one that shows an externalization of those emotions. So we're going to get on with the scene. The first thing to bear in mind is Shakespeare uses a literary device we've seen from him before in the form of the beginning of the scene and the act indeed, beginning in medias res, meaning in the middle of things in Latin. It's a literary device that increases our dramatic tension because we don't know what has been said before they arrive on stage. But Shakespeare also uses it cleverly to give this sense of a breakdown of order, of chaos, which the same chaos which seeps through the act as a whole and the scene as a whole. So, enter Othello and Iago. Will you think so? Think so, Iago. What? To kiss in private? An authorized kiss? Or to be naked with her friend in bed an hour or more, not meaning any harm? Naked in bed, Iago, and not mean harm, it is a hypocrisy against the devil. They that mean virtuously and yet do so, the devil their virtue tempts, and they tempt heaven. So they do nothing, 'tis a venial slip. But if I give my wife a handkerchief, what then? Why then 'tis hers, my lord, and being hers, she may, I think, bestow it on any man. Okay, so two things to note here. First of all, we've seen from Iago before things that we're going to see in this scene. So cryptic remarks and riddles he uses, generalizations, hints, suggestions, inferences, all of these things he uses to great effect, showing that the power that his language can have. So here what he does in this quote that I've highlighted here, he offers very explicit sexual imagery while trying to show his disbelief. So in this case, he seems to be defending Desdemona and Cassio, showing that whatever is going on between them, yes, they might be found in bed together, but it must be innocent. But at the same time, he's planting this image, this really explicit sexual image in Othello's head that he knows is going to torture him. The second thing he does is he mentions the handkerchief. And the handkerchief, remember, is going to be what he calls later in the scene the ocular proof, the proof to Othello's eye that the cuckolding has taken place. So we see repeated mention of the handkerchief. Remember, this handkerchief is a domestic object which was a symbol of Desdemona and Othello's love, and perhaps a symbol of Desdemona's loyalty. And now Iago himself has taken it and he's steeped it in guilt. He's soaked it in guilt. And we see it as one of the contributing factors that does the damage in this scene. So, as we continue, Iago has said that this handkerchief is hers and she may bestow it on any man. And Othello asks if the same is true of her honour. In this case, a woman's honour in Jacobean England and obviously in Venice is seen as one of their most valuable objects. A woman who maintains her honour is in a much more powerful position to essentially negotiate with marriage. And remember, the threat that cuckolding represents to society, honour is key. Iago brushes off the discussion of her honour, says her honour is an essence that's not seen. We can't know about it. They have it very often that have it not. So we see one of his very generalised statements about women that many women appear to have it and in fact don't. But, and he returns Othello's thoughts to the handkerchief again. Now, the handkerchief is something that Othello describes as a raven over the infected house. He says, "By heaven, I would most gladly have forgot it. Thou said it, it comes over my memory, as doth the raven over the infected house, boding to all. He had my handkerchief." So obviously the he he's referring to here is Cassio. But the imagery used here, the metaphor of the raven over the infected house, is an interesting one. First of all, the raven, as I'm sure you all know, is the large black bird. And it's seen as a bad omen. So what he's referring to here is the handkerchief itself is a bad omen for him. But he says over an infected house. So the infected house would be a plague-ridden house. When the black raven flies over it, it brings news of the plague, essentially, or it suggests that there's plague in the house. And this is interesting because he's describing his mind as the infected house. And this is another of our image clusters that we see this language and imagery of poison, disease, corruption. And here he's already describing this mind that we talked about earlier. We watch the mental deterioration of it. He's describing it as an infected mind, an infected house. Also remember that dichotomy of black and white. Here, the plague, the raven, they're all associated with blackness, with poison and disease. So Iago goes on, "Aye, what of that? That's not so good now." Now, Iago then goes on to say, "What if I had said I had seen him do you wrong, or heard him say as knaves be such abroad, who having by their own importune suit or voluntary dotage of some mistress, convinced or supplied them, cannot choose but they must blab.